tweeted, "Can the left let the families grieve?" for 24 hours before they push their anti-gun and anti-gun owner agenda. This isn't about a gun, it's about another lunatic. To which one student from Marjory Stoneman Douglas replied, "A gun has killed 17 of my fellow classmates. A gun has traumatized my friends. My entire school traumatized from this tragedy. This could have been prevented." Another said, "I was hiding in a closet for 2 hours. It was about guns. You weren't there. You don't know how it felt." This time, we are going to get something done. Gun control needs to happen now. We've reached a point in our nation where, in spite of hundreds of innocent lives taken every year, in spite of all of the facts that say gun control works, we hear a lot of adults saying, "It's not going to work. Why bother? In such a gun-loving country, you're never going to be able to enact gun control." For some reason, a lot of kids aren't saying that. A lot of kids haven't become complacent. Maybe it's because of the adrenaline and the hormones rushing through our body. Maybe it's because we haven't been beaten down by the real world over the course of 30, 40, or 50 years. Whatever the reason, it gives us this absurd sense of optimism, even in the face of hopeless odds. A lot of people will make fun of us for it, and they'll say these kids are young, they're dumb, they don't know what they're doing, they try things that will never work. But for some reason, we don't stop. We keep going. We keep going with this absurd, hopeless sense of optimism, and really, that's the American spirit. It's what led us from controlled... It's what led us to revolt against a controlling government that had a military that could seemingly wipe us all out. It's what led us to go from 13 colonies with endless disputes to one nation with one constitution. And it's what will lead us to enact gun control. Emma Gonzalez, a senior at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, delivered an incredibly powerful speech during a gun control rally held in response to the shooting. Her speech concluded with this: "Companies trying to make caricatures of the teenagers these days, saying that we are self-involved and trend-obsessed, and they hush us into submission when our message doesn't reach the ears of the nation. We are prepared to call BS. Politicians who sit in their gilded House and Senate seats funded by the NRA telling us nothing could have been done to prevent this, we call BS. They say tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence, and we call BS. They say a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun, and we call BS. They say guns are tools like knives and are as dangerous as cars. We call BS. They say no laws could have prevented the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred. We call BS. That us kids don't know what we're talking about. That we're too young to understand how the government works. We call BS. You know what? Right now, we are kids. But we're sitting back and we're watching as our lawmakers fail us. Some of us will be able to vote in this upcoming election, but not all of us. A lot of adults have been coming up to us students and saying, how can we help? What can we do? There are two things you can do. First of all, you all need to register to vote. There are people who come to this building every day to go to work, and they fight gun control. They fight against gun control, and they fight for the senseless tragedies that occur. You need to vote these people out of their jobs. Second, if you have a cell phone with social media, Facebook or Twitter, take it out and pull up either Facebook or Twitter right now. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that.
Hey, now, stop. No, I'm with you.
If you're on Facebook, you need to look up a Facebook page called Honor Through Action, because we want to honor the victims of gun control with action towards sensible gun control. Or the victims of gun violence, I'm sorry. We honor the victims of the shootings with gun control. That page is a student-founded, student-led organization that's going to keep fighting for gun control until we make it happen. If you're on Twitter, the handle is Honor Through Action, but it's THRU because we couldn't fit all of the characters for the full word. Give us a like or give us a follow, and we will keep in touch with you. We need to get something done, and we need your help to do it. Don't let us down this May during primaries. Don't let us down this November during the general election. Do not let us down. Thank you.
Let's give a hand to all the students that are here. My name is Jesse Gann, and in the days after Sandy Hook, myself and fellow co-founder Brad Martin started an organization called the Foundation for Hope. We started this organization with a mission to bring hope to people dealing with bullying, depression, and suicide. Since that day, we grew the organization to include a variety of mental health programs and services, including group therapy, a 24/7 hotline. We opened a community center and started training community members and schools on topics like youth mental health first aid and crisis response team training, and so much more. Our work was effective, it was meaningful, and it was saving lives until a couple years ago. The national, state, and local funding sources were cut under the illusion of fiscal conservatism. The political will in this country to treat mental health with the same sense of urgency as physical health started to lose focus, and the funding to sustain our work faded. One by one, we had to take the painful decisions to cut our programs, and these programs were saving lives, until we became a shell of what we once were. It hurt, and it still hurts me, but I can't stop fighting, and none of us can stop fighting until we see the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you. I took my passion, knowledge, and experience to elected office and ran for and won my elected seat on Susquehanna Township School Board. So I can use every bit of that education and knowledge to make a difference in the lives of our students right here, right now. With that said, I'm here completely and totally inspired by these kids for the second major time in my life. Forget the negative things that people say about millennials. As a 32-year-old gay man and as a self-proclaimed member of the millennial fringe, I am a personal witness to the power in the heart of this upcoming generation. When I was growing up, coming to terms with who I am, I felt the best that I could ever hope for was tolerance. Not acceptance, and certainly not approval, but tolerance. I resigned myself to a life dedicated to being tolerated until my mid-20s, when this generation, the generation starting this movement to change the world yet again, changed my world. They rejected the notion that tolerance was good enough and saw me as a person worthy of love, respect, and peace. This generation said, I may not know all the rules, but I know the difference between right and wrong. And on that principle, they inspired us to make this country a better and more accepting and more approving place. So don't tell me for a second that this generation doesn't have the power to change the world. They do. And here they are saying the same thing again. I may not know all the rules, but I know the difference between right and wrong. And selling automatic weapons to high schoolers, treating mental health as a scapegoat to avoid meaningful gun control reform, giving teachers guns, turning schools into prisons, and blaming victims for the actions of domestic terrorists is wrong. It's wrong, and we will not tolerate it for one more moment. We are so sick and tired of hearing the horrible, meaningless slogan of the NRA and gun lobbyists that guns don't kill people, people do. No, to them we say guns don't die, but our children are dying in our schools and dying in our streets, and it's time to stand up and do something about it. To the people that say gun control is a slippery slope, I say the only slippery slope we're on is a slippery slope to more gun violence, mass shootings, and more children missing at the dining room table. And the proof is in the evidence, not the lip service they sell us, but the evidence. Every single day, 96 of our brothers, sisters, friends, and loved ones are killed by gun violence. That's over 35,000 Americans a year. 50 is the number of mass murders or attempted mass murders at schools since the Columbine massacre. That's 50. It's unexcusable. And it's unacceptable. It's time to stand up to the NRA. It's time to stand up to the pro-gun, anti-life rhetoric. It's time to take weapons of mass destruction like AR-15, semi-automatic rifles, and rifles with alterations like bump stocks out of our stores and off our streets. It's time to stand up to lawmakers and pundits who blame mental health for all the world's problems and then turn around and gut funding for mental health programs to save lives. It's time to stand up to the politicians who, when faced with the opportunity to affect real, meaningful change and save lives, choose to cower in fear rather than stand with courage. Gun lobbyists may be holding these politicians hostage, but they will not hold the American people hostage any longer. I'm tired of hearing every excuse under the sun for why these shootings keep happening and seeing nothing done in response. You know, when I was 14 years old, the Columbine massacre happened. I was a freshman in high school, and immediately after, our lawmakers deflected against common sense gun control and instead blamed Marilyn Manson music for inspiring mass shootings. How many high schoolers today know who Marilyn Manson is, much less listen to his music? So why are there more mass shootings today than ever before? The Republicans, the gun lobbyists, the NRA, the pundits, they were wrong then, and they've only gotten more wrong over time. So when our legislators say, this mass shooting isn't a gun problem, it's a mental health problem, we say, put your money where your mouth is and pass mental health reform. When our legislators say this mass shooting isn't a gun problem, it's a local law enforcement problem, we say put your money where your mouth is and strengthen the Baker Act so when people display violent, homicidal, dangerous behaviors, our police officers have the right to take their guns and keep themselves and the people around them safe. When our legislators say this mass shooting isn't a gun problem, it's a social services problem, we say put your money where your mouth is and stop gutting funding for social services and then blaming them for not doing enough. When our legislators say this mass shooting isn't a gun problem, it's a bullying problem, we say put your money where your mouth is and pass legislation mandating every school, both public and charter, have bullying prevention programs like Olveus and give them the funding to make it happen. Stop talking, start acting. Stop talking, start acting. Stop talking, start acting. That's right. Stop talking like you want to solve the problems and then do nothing. Grow the courage to make a difference or step down. A new generation is here, and they will not accept your brand of do-nothing leadership. Our most powerful weapon to make not one more a reality is you. You have the voice to... You have to be the voice for those that are no longer here to speak up and take action. You are not powerless in the face of this problem, and we don't have to sit passively by while we wait for politicians to take action. We do not need to send our children to school and hold our breath that they will survive just yet another day in America. The children who are standing up at Stoneman Douglas High School and around the world are proof that when we rise, we have power. So when it comes to electing representatives and politicians who will take action on gun control, we have the power. When it comes to electing representatives and politicians who will take action on mental health reform, we have the power. When it comes to sending representatives and politicians who refuse to act into early retirement home, we have the power. When it comes to demanding action from corporate America and demand that they ban selling weapons of mass destruction like assault rifles, we have the power. And when it comes to demanding action from local school boards to make our schools better and more prepared and safer, we have the power. And when our politicians and our country fail us and we have the power to run for office, take back our country, and be the voice of change. Yes, the Second Amendment makes the privilege of gun ownership a right, and we respect that right to a point. But we have rights too. Our children have the right to live. Our parents have the right to put their children on a school bus without wondering if it's the last time they'll see them alive. We have the right to go to a concert without being shot. We have the right to mental health resources. We have the right to a safe education. We have the right to be safe in America again. We have rights. We have power. We have rights. We have power. We have rights. We have power. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Eamon Wrightstone. I'm only 17 years old. I'm a junior in high school, and I am angry and I am terrified. It's because I fear that each day might be my last. I'll start over, alright? Hello, my name is Eamon Wrightstone. I am only 17 and I am a junior in high school. And as I stand here, I am angry and I am terrified. And it's not because of all of you here, but it's because I fear that each day might be my last. Every day that I walk into the four walls of my school, my sense of security slowly diminishes. Every popped balloon in the hallway, any stomped on sandwich baggie filled with air in the cafeteria could be a bullet whizzing past my head. I fear for my life in one of the places I should feel safest. The worst part about all of this is how desensitized we've become to gun violence. Anytime a school shooting is announced, it's followed with shrugs and, oh, it's just another one. When did it become this way? I often wonder if I've fallen into an alternate reality where school shootings are just commonplace, but it is reality. The reality is that since Columbine, 270 shootings have happened at any kind of school. Since Columbine, 141 people have been killed in a mass murder at a school. Since Sandy Hook, more than 400 people have been shot in school shootings. And almost 7,000 children have been killed by guns. How many more? How many more deaths? How many more shootings? How many more parents must bury their children too soon before something finally changes? But yet we're told that there's nothing that they can do. Thoughts and prayers are given instead of action and reform, the very thing that could actually change and improve things. So I say to those in government seats who sit in golden thrones of wealth, lies, and deceit, who abuse their power wrongfully given to them by the people of this country, and who refuse to push bills that could help this country, I demand that you act. The time is now to listen. Listen to the students leading this movement. Listen to the people dying on the streets. Listen to the thousands of people chanting, "Never again." Never again. See these people fighting for a change and act. There have been 17 shootings in 2018. 17 school shootings. That blood stains the hands of every politician who refuses to fight for better gun laws. The hands of the NRA, the hands of Dana Lausch, whose shameless ignorance on national television and NRA TV told us that our time was running out. But it's not. It's just begun. Every day that I wake up and I have survived the day, I write a letter to my country. Dear America, I know you can be better. I don't hate you, but I hate what you have become. But I am hopeful for what you could become. Change doesn't happen instantaneously. I know this. It takes time. However, I am grateful to the incredible Parkland students who fought through the adversity they have faced to make their voices heard. I'm grateful for the path they have further plowed for me and my fellow students to push change forward. they have used their voices to amplify the outcry for social justice and speak for those who cannot speak or who are simply just ignored. And I offer my condolences to all the families affected by gun violence. I am so sorry that you live in a country that failed you and will continue to fail its citizens under deplorable leadership. Dear America, you can be better. And I sign this letter with bright red ink in all caps because I promise that as long as I am breathing, as long as I am surviving and living, I will fight. I will fight for what I believe in. I will fight for this country to be better. I will fight until not one more person is victim to a mass shooting, and I challenge all of you to do the same. My name is Eamon Wrightstone. I am only 17 years old. I'm a junior in high school, and I am angry and terrified. But I will fight until I don't have to be anymore. Thank you.
That was my entrance. I asked for that. Ooh. Hi. My name is Ellie Park, and I printed my speech on cardstock because I am a teacher. And it's windy. Before I start my prepared remarks, I just want to say something really quick. Everybody who's a student, I know a lot of you are behind me. Would you just raise your hand if you are a student K through 12? Nice and high. Our media would have us believe that these students who are here on a Saturday are not really all that prepared to take on the duty of being the future of this country. And I have heard plenty in my role as an educator about how these students are not prepared for that role. And I am here right now, loud and clear, to say to all of you that you are not the problem. You are the solution. And I have never in my life been more proud of teenagers than I have been in the last couple of months. All right, so I have to do a thing here at the beginning. I am compelled first to ensure that everyone here understands that while I work for Carlisle Area School District, my statement today is in no way endorsed by or reflective of the views of the district administration or anyone for whom I work. I am not standing here as a representative of Carlisle Area School District in any way. My position holds no bearing on how I run my classroom or engage with my students. I speak here as a community member, but not in my capacity as a public educator. I will be the president of my union next year, so I'm pretty aware of what I need to do here. Unions. Awesome. Okay. For 7 years, I have worked in room 111 of the Swartz building at Carlisle High School. Carlisle! For 7 years, I have taught literature and facilitated learning in that room. And that room has been a constant for me. A warm space with shelves full of books, comfortable chairs, uplifting posters, and happy teenagers most of the time. As my students and my lesson plans change from year to year, as society morphs, my classroom holds steady. But this year, my classroom has changed. I am still settled comfortably in 111, but with some new additions. This year, I spent $15.91 at Home Depot on bungee cords to secure my classroom door from an intruder, on a hammer to break a window in my classroom so my students could escape. I spent 57 minutes drafting a plan for who in each class should break that window, how they could safely exit from my second-story classroom to the ground below, and what those who weren't actively escaping should do while students forced their way out of my window. I spent $11.17 at Target on magnetic baskets from my whiteboards where I place my room keys and my ID badge daily. Should a student need to be the one to lock the door while I am helping other students out of the window? No. Every class knows where I keep my keys and what to do in such a scenario. In October, I had a dream in which, panicked, I clutched the doorknob of my classroom, watching students, never fast enough, trying to get out of my window, while an armed teenager on the other side shouted profanities. I was just buying them time. Buying them time. It seems like hyperbole, this response. It feels irrational, overwrought, to be imagining myself and my students in any horrible situation, to be taking measures daily against such an eventuality. But we've all seen the footage, haven't we? We all know the numbers, right? 2 weeks ago when I wrote this speech, it was 9 school shootings in 9 weeks. As of yesterday, when I edited this speech, it's 17 school shootings in 11 weeks. So that's 8 school shootings in 2 weeks, by the way. As of 10 shootings. 17 shootings where someone other than the shooter was murdered. Just last week, 1 beautiful young girl killed at Great Mills High School. 17 killed at Stoneman Douglas. 20 killed in Sandy Hook. 15 killed at Columbine. On the inside of my classroom doors, standing in front of teenagers whom I love, this horrible possibility is all too real. In Parkland, teachers enacted those plans that they had only imagined, the in case of the unimaginable, but 14 children and 3 teachers still died. In Perry Hall, Maryland, where I went to high school, a guidance counselor launched himself onto the body of a screaming 16-year-old with a loaded rifle as he sent bullets through the air of the cafeteria. At Sandy Hook Elementary, teachers filled cabinets intended for Elmer's glue and stickers with 6-year-olds trembling and silent. Do you know how hard it is to get a 6-year-old to be silent? But it wasn't hyperbole for those children. It was real. It wasn't unimaginable. It was happening. And it happens over and over and over again. My 9th grade class reads a novel called The Giver. One of the lessons from that novel is that sometimes not deciding is deciding. We talk about how that works, how when people elect not to decide, to make a choice, take action, they are really choosing not to do that thing. We talk about all the ways that they do that, when they just don't get around to cleaning their bedrooms, for example. When they don't decide to get that space tidied up, they really are deciding to ignore their mom's pleas, and the big mess, and the sensible house rules, right? They have actually decided not to take care of that important business, haven't they? And by not deciding, they get to maintain a comfortable, comforting self-delusion. It's not that they said no to such a reasonable request. They're not unreasonable, or uncaring, or selfish, or indifferent. They just never got around to deciding to act. They will get around to it, eventually. Just not today. In The Giver, people are being murdered in secret to maintain the illusion of peace and harmony in the fictional community. The protagonist at one crucial point comes to acknowledge that by doing nothing to stop this, he is complicit in their deaths. 9th graders really get this. They are just becoming painfully aware of what hypocrisy means. At some point, in not deciding, we are the problem. At some point, we are complicit in the deaths of the children, teenagers, students murdered in our schools. At some point, we are responsible for 6-year-olds crouched in a cabinet too afraid to cry. At some point, it's on us. I love my job, and I love my students even more, and I was a little afraid to speak out today, sort of announcing myself to the world like this. But at some point, inaction becomes action. I don't want to ever have to use the bungee cords wrapped around my door or the hammer in the cabinet by my window. I don't want any of my students to ever have to fumble with my keys as their sweaty fingers try to lock a door with the unimaginable on the other side. I don't even want to think for a moment about any of this. It's easy to think of it as something that just happens in other schools, other places, something that will never, could never happen here. To blame anything, to lay fault somewhere, to make it impossible in my mind that my own 2 toddlers might grow up motherless because of a person with a gun in my school. But until we take action, and this country takes action, and the legislators that work in that building take action, the possibility that an armed intruder might be trying to come through my door to shoot me, to shoot these teenagers that I love, it's on me. It's on every one of us now. To pretend otherwise is simply dangerous. So, it's time to decide to decide. Today, I hope everyone standing in front of me, and more importantly, everyone standing behind me, decides to register to vote. I hope that everyone, every single one of you in this audience votes in May, and in November, and in every election after that. You are the constituents. Your vote is your weapon. It is better than a gun. Use it. Today, I hope everyone standing in front of me and also behind me pledges to hold politicians accountable for their votes. To tell them that our lives and our children's lives are more valuable than NRA dollars. Today, I hope everyone standing around me carefully and seriously considers and reconsiders their position on the place of firearms in our country. Our Second Amendment is real and valid, and I'm not standing here to ask you to abolish it. I'm not standing here hoping to invade anyone's homes, to confiscate guns that are used wisely and carefully for defensible purposes by good people. But I have been working in a school for 7 years, and every year it's a little more likely that I will be shot there. That's not the kind of protection the Second Amendment seeks. This is the part where I have every teacher and educational support assistant and pre-service teacher and retired teacher please raise their hand. Hear the kids cheering for you? Isn't that great? Hey, hi friends. This is the part where I ask a question and you answer it. I would not have Congress arm teachers. Is putting a gun in our hands the solution? No! Trust me, it's the wrong idea. Also not rocks. That's new. Saw that yesterday. They have rocks at some schools, and you can throw them. I would have Congress expand background checks and implement psychological evaluations as a mandate for gun ownership. I would have Congress enact stricter age restrictions on firearm purchases. I would have Congress ban those with a history of domestic abuse from purchasing firearms ever. I would have Congress place limitations on magazine sizes. I would have Congress ban bump stocks. Here we go, guys. And I would have Congress ban assault-style weapons like the ones purchased legally by Nicholas Cruz to murder 14 children and their teachers, coaches, and administrators. Send 14 more to the hospital with bullets in their bodies and traumatize hundreds more, having borne witness to that horror. Yes. I would have Congress decide, finally, to do something to prevent these tragedies. If they do not, and if we do not, next time, and without action, there will be a next time. The blood is on our hands. Thank you. Unions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aisha Noor. I am co-chair of Response Team of Community Responders Network, but today I'm here as a mother. Okay. 400 people have been shot since Sandy Hook in school shootings. And what did we do? Nothing. What are we doing to bring change? Nothing. So today, while I'm listening to all these speakers, I'm extremely proud and disappointed at the same time. I am proud of our youth who decided to take action when our politicians and leaders decided to do nothing except sending prayers and thoughts. I am proud of all these students who are leading this change, who decided to say enough is enough and never again. I am proud of all these students who were able to mobilize these communities when we as adults couldn't. I am proud of all youth who are able to channel their grief and frustration into energy and bringing this revolution who will bring change, and they will lead us there. This is not a moment in history. This is a movement. But I am disappointed that they had to, because we did not. They had to do a rally to ask for a right, that their right to live is greater than to have a right to own AR-15. They had to come on a street to ask for a space where they can learn without any fear of being shot, where a teacher can be a teacher rather than being a shield between a bullet and a student. Just yesterday in my son's school, there were many students were absent. Not because they were sick, not because they were family emergency, because there were a threat made to school. And parents had to make a decision. Should they have their kids miss a school, miss their education, and lie to administration that they are sick, having educational trip? Because apparently threat to school and students is not a legit excuse to be excused. Or should they take a risk of sending their kids to school and never seeing them again? I could not help but thinking about those parents who sent their kids to school but never heard from them again, who dropped off their kids at the bus stop, but that bus never brought back their kid, who had to plan funerals rather than graduation parties. This is our youth, our future, our kids, our children we are talking about. How there can be two sides to this? This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is not a right-wing or left-wing issue. This is our issue. This is a history that our youth is making here. And you have to decide that what side you are going to be on. This history that they have to decide, are they going to live or to be shot one day when they are going to school? Time is not next year, next month, tomorrow. Time is today, right here, right now, for action. And it is time that we put our kids above rifles, lives above profits, and humanity above politics. Thank you.
You guys, I had that beautiful woman speak at many of my events. She's amazing. Check her out.
I was told that they're having trouble hearing down below, and to speak loudly, that's never been an issue for me. So if you can't hear me down below, just holler up the steps. My name is Dolores McCracken. I am president of the Pennsylvania State Education Association, the largest union in the state of Pennsylvania, representing teachers, nurses, education support professionals. And we're proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we call for clear and decisive action to keep our students and our educators safe in their schools. No one, no student, no parent, no educator should worry about the threat of violence when they walk through the doors of our schools. And yet, that is what we have seen play out in too many school settings across the country. And after every tragedy, we say, never again. But these tragedies aren't going to stop on their own. They're not going to stop unless we act. We're ready for clear and decisive action. This time must be different. After the tragic shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, I put out a call to our PSEA members to hear what suggestions they had to make our schools safer. Our members are on the front lines, closest to the students who may become adrift, and they are experts. They are worth listening to. Nearly 1,000 of them stepped up, sharing a wide array of good ideas. We compiled their suggestions into a report that we shared last week with Governor Tom Wolf and state lawmakers. Those ideas ranged from investing in physical improvements to our schools to ensuring we have enough school counselors, psychologists, and social workers with a manageable caseload to creating crisis threat assessment teams that can predict and prevent violence. One idea PSEA does not support is arming teachers in classrooms. Our members are highly trained educators, counselors, nurses, and support professionals. They are not highly trained police officers. There is a place for appropriately trained and armed school safety officers in keeping our schools safe, but it is not in the hands of our teachers. Putting more guns in the hands of more people in our schools is not the answer. It will make our students and our educators less safe at school. That's why we have focused on policies that will work, and yes, they will require investments. But think about the people of Florida, Connecticut, Colorado, and recently Maryland, having to look back with regret. Let us not look back in regret. We look forward to working with Governor Wolf and all of our elected leaders in the weeks and months ahead. And I want to thank all of you here today for being part of this movement. I especially want to thank the brave students here and across the country who are speaking up, taking action, and demanding an end to gun violence in your schools. Leave it to our young people to show us the way. They are never shy about taking on the huge problems of the world, and it's inspiring. Thank you. Keep up the great work. A change is coming.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandra Garcia, and I work for Senator Bob Casey, and we work for you. Senator Casey has asked me to express his gratitude to all of you, particularly the young students and future leaders of this nation, for leading the charge for change in our nation. He has been inspired by the activism of so many young people from all over the country. He too believes that enough is enough, and it's past the time for action. Students around the country and the victims of gun violence shouldn't have to wait around as Congress does nothing. There is nothing political about common sense gun reform. It is simply a matter of public safety. This is why Senator Casey has voted to institute universal background checks, prevent those on the terror watch list from possessing firearms, and banning military-style assault weapons and large-capacity magazines. You can expect that Senator Casey will continue to support measures like these. On another note, we agree with Dolores. Giving teachers guns does not make schools safer. It could potentially make it harder for trained law enforcement officials and first emergency responders to identify shooters and prevent them from doing their jobs effectively and saving lives. Our teachers should be able to focus on educating our students. That's the job they were hired to do. So far, students and young people have been driving the conversation, but there are two political officials in Washington that can bring up legislation on gun reform to make our community safer as soon as they please. That's Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Speaker Paul Ryan. Senator Casey has called for action from Leader McConnell and Speaker Ryan and will continue to do so. Senator Casey wants a serious, sustained debate and a series of votes so that the students and communities around this country have the basic security that we all deserve. He will not stop fighting until we see these changes. Thank you, and please keep up the fight.
How y'all doing? I'm Julian Davenport. I go by Jules. How y'all doing? I'm an urban poet from Harrisburg. I use my poetry to bring awareness to situations like this. Harrisburg Heat. Huh? Oh, sorry. Recently in February, Harrisburg Heat asked me to write a poem. And they just asked me to bring awareness to this situation. And the only word that I could come up with was tragedy. So here it goes. Started out like every other morning. By the end of the day, our whole world left mourning. One senseless act. Now parents' pain pouring. This is an issue that's colorless, statistically soaring. Tragedy. A word that holds rage inside. Like the heart of your loved ones, knowing the age you died. Whether the physical act of another or bully side. Either way, that one common question amongst us all, and that's why. As I look up at the sky, tears fall to the floor, feeling frail. But thoughts of your laughter give wind to my sails. Tragedy, a word we worry won't warn us. It left us cold, though we had plans of the warmest. To the teachers who showed us what a true hero is. Give it to them. To the innocent children who didn't have a chance to live. To the children who survived, this will forever change your lives. May we be patient and understand. May out the ashes you rise. Community, a word that holds unity inside. If we should ever overcome, together, that's how we'll survive. Tragedy. I just want to let y'all know one more poem out of my book. That poem was specifically for this situation. I got a poem that I like called My Society. It goes like this. In my society, there's choices of destruction and variety. I always felt like the rules never applied to me. In my society, the path to success is rarely taken, and the young boys lose their fathers and they feel forsaken. In my society, precious young girls evolve, and all we see is closed doors, because the open is crowded. In my society, some days I ask God how he could allow this. But I guess he wouldn't give us one thing that we couldn't handle. Caught up in our lifestyles in the midst of a scandal. In my society, it isn't safe to walk the streets. It's robbers, there's thieves, the underachieved. And money's the only subject. People's eyes filled with greed. In my society. That's it, yo. I stand with the students.
So, hey guys, I am Maya Corey, and I'm here with Seneca Cook, and we are 14, and we go to Swatera Middle School. So, I just want to thank everyone for coming out here, and I'm going to start. So, I was adopted from Kenya when I was 2. People talk about Kenya like it's a dangerous place, but in Kenya, you have to be 21 years old to own a gun. There are very strict background checks, and you have to have compelling reasons why you should own that gun. Checks are regularly repeated. Today, at the U.S. Embassy in Kenya, they protested for good sense gun control for the United States. Dana Lausch, the NRA representative, said, "Teenagers piss me off." Well, you know what makes me mad? I have to go to school not knowing if I will ever see my family again because one of her weapons are going to kill me. Every single school shooting's victim's blood is on the NRA's hand. They are one of the reasons that we keep having school shootings. They are one of the reasons that 59 people died in Las Vegas. They are one of the reasons that 26 people died going to church. They are one of the reasons 20 first graders died while going to school. The NRA has done nothing but hurt people. All semi-automatic rifles do is kill. So is that the kind of world we want to live in? No! Students and teachers go to school to teach and learn, not to sacrifice their lives in case of a school shooting. Nobody should have to see their classmates running for their lives at school. School is supposed to be a safe place where we go to learn, but now we learn how to survive a school shooting because they're so common. There are students in this world that have to live with the trauma of hearing their classmates call for help because they are bleeding to death because of a semi-automatic weapon. This is what continues to happen. But instead of taking away the issue, President Trump wants to add to the issue. No, this is not about red and blue, but you do not add what is harming us to the problem. I will never sit in a room with an armed teacher. Ashley Pistetler said, if a kid... Ashley Pistetler said, if a kid throws a rock at another kid in the sandbox, you don't give every other kid a rock. If your school gets shot up, you don't give every student a gun. You just don't. Books, not bullets.
Hi, I'm Seneca Cook, and I'm a 14-year-old and an 8th grader at Swatera Middle School. Everyone here today has one thing on their mind, and that is gun safety and control. Ever since the mass shooting in Parkland, Florida, I've been walking down my halls in fear, thinking to myself, am I next? Will I walk into school and have to hide from my life in a classroom, hearing sounds of a semi-automatic weapon that was bought just for the purpose to kill people? I fear every single day that I'm in school that it may be my last day I see my friends, family, or parents. We are only 11 weeks into 2018, and there have been 17 school shootings where someone was hurt or killed. On average, there are about 1.5 school shootings per week. Per week. Now, the President Donald Trump wants to arm teachers. However, in gunfights, trained officers have an 18% hit rate, yet we still want to arm teachers. As a student, if my teacher had a gun, I would never set foot in my school again. Why? Because my teachers applied to their job to give students an education, not to fear that one day they will have to shoot a former student or anyone in general. Since Sandy Hook in 2012, there have been 239 school shootings nationwide. 438 people have been shot, and 138 people have been killed in those shootings. This is our country. Today we march for every school shooting victim. Today I march for my life to be safe in school. Let's make change. Change starts now. Okay, so we're going to be doing some chants with you guys.
Just to take a break from the speeches. So the first chant we should do is, what do we need change and when do we need it now? So when Seneca and I say, what do we need, you guys scream as loud as you can so that they can hear you, change. And then we say, when do we need it? You guys say now. So, what do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! What do we need? Change! When do we need it? Now! Okay, so the second chant. The second chant that we can do is no more silence and gun violence. So, no more silence and gun violence. 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 Okay, so another one, which is probably my favorite, is the hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go. Hey hey ho ho, the NRA has got to go.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't find my daughter. Lucy, where are you? She's 7. She's wearing a purple and orange jacket. It has a "Hear Me Now" button. She was over there by that tree with me. Lucy! Lucy!
Tell her to come into the middle.
Lucy, come. Can you come forward? Come through. They'll let you through. Where are you? She's wearing a purple and orange plaid type jacket. She has her hair back in a very, very messy bun. She's 7.
Find her? Did they find her? Oh. Oh. Yeah.
He's heading to summer. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, we found her. We're gonna do one more chant as loud as we can. So when I say protect kids, you guys say not guns. So protect kids! Not guns! 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 Okay, thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris Rodke. I'm the pastor at St. Paul's United Church of Christ in Dallastown in York County. Let's hear it for York. And my friend Claudio and I are here today to speak to the faith community on this issue of school violence and the accessibility of guns. We're also here to speak to the post-faith community that there is a Christian voice to be heard on this issue, even while many are afraid to speak this truth in their churches in the flyover region of this country. While we were starting today, I couldn't help but notice, if you look around, here's protesting the lack of action and voice from our politicians behind us. But if you look around, I'm also here to talk about the lack of voice and the silence coming from the churches around us as well. We are here to testify to the reality that the silence of the church on this issue and on so many social issues that face young people today is an endorsement of ethical nihilism. The silence of the church on this issue is part of the root cause of why we are here today. On the steps of this Capitol that was founded by Quakers and home and refuge of so many religious groups who have come here to escape violence, we must not romanticize our history of violence here in Pennsylvania to whitewash the racism in the history of our state. Many of the immigrant communities that came here to our state for freedom were met with violence. The violence of whiteness and nativism and privilege that is part of our heritage. Through history, we have become complacent to acknowledge that the gun is the primary protector of those evils, veiled in fear of others who are different and veiled by a fear of ourselves. We are here to proclaim that the Second Amendment does not trump the Second Commandment. Today is the day before Palm Sunday for most Christians in the world and in our state, when we commemorate Jesus entering the holy city, following a parade that celebrated the violence of the emperor and the god of hypermasculinity, the god of greed and the god of false hope. Christians should remember that this story of Jesus following up on the parade of a donkey, people bowed down and waved their palm branches in praise of the one that came to liberate them, only to demand his blood a few days later. I imagine a situation where Christ would be crucified today in this city, not on wood from our forests, but from the metal of the mills, and shot full of lead. This is why we're here, because Christ is executed by the state. Christ is executed by the crowd when our tongues offer faint praise in one breath and demand blood in the next. On Valentine's Day, we faintly gave praise until gunfire interrupted a school. The Good Friday, which we observe this coming week, began on this past Valentine's Day when we as a nation carried out an execution. Yes, we as a nation carried out a public execution because of our praise for our own rights, our worship of our own selves, and a worship of a God of fear and violence. We will no longer remain silent. The ancient and evil gods that demanded the sacrifice of children may be the gods of our elected officials, but we stand on these steps today to proclaim loudly that the lust for life will always triumph over a lust for death. That no gesture, no right, no piece of paper, no veiled reason to stop escaped slaves, no false sense of security is greater than the lives of children. Christians of Pennsylvania, the God of Christ who is executed on death row is bigger than any narrow and false sense of security that can be falsely promised to us by politicians and survivalists and lobbyists and racists who are preparing for the impending race war that the former president of the NRA promised us was coming. Christians of Pennsylvania, it is time for us to come to the altar of hope and freedom and to stand up in confidence and without fear of the demagogues and pastors in our state who worship in the temples of violence. Christians of Pennsylvania, we call upon those who place the name of God on their lips to ask this question: how many more of our children must be sacrificed before we approach the altar call toward a gospel of life over death? What number of dead children and dead teachers and mothers and fathers and siblings and spouses and lovers and partners must die before we have satisfied and satiated our desire to worship our own fears? My friends in faith, my atheist friends who have rejected the God of violence for entirely good reasons, I appeal to you. Call your lawmakers. Make some noise this week. Celebrate this coming Holy Week with rally and protest. Tell your pastors in your church and in your communities that the world believes that life triumphs over death. And that means that no matter how many lobbyists, no matter how many politicians have been bought and sold behind us, no matter how many preachers and priests in big churches around us have turned their back away from a lust for life and talk about their constitutional rights in one breath and justification for bleeding corpses of children in the next breath. No matter how many of the churches have turned from this gospel, we can turn back and honor each other and love one another by simply putting these weapons down for good. Some of you might not pray. Some of you are tired of hearing our leaders in the church and the state telling us that they're praying for an answer. They're praying for an answer to a God that only responds with bullets and dead children. So let our prayer today be to not speak with fear or with firearms, but that we speak with tongues of fire. That life triumphs over death, and that even the smallest voice, even the voices of the dead, call upon us to speak repentance. Amen. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Claudio, who's from Brazil and lives in Enola, and is a professor in New York City.
Good afternoon. So happy to be here with you all, and this is when we realize that we can do way more than we are feeling so frustrated at home. we can do more. And I'm here for our children, for our past, for our present, and for our future. We gather here today because there is a moral issue, that there is something really wrong going on in this country right now. There is something wrong when our precious kids are killed in schools. There's something wrong when we are not sure if our kids will come back from school, a reality that black mothers and black fathers know way too well. There's something wrong when instead of disarming our population, there's a call to arm us even more. There's something morally wrong when our political leaders can offer thoughts and prayers to those suffering, which fundamentally means we do not care enough to change. There's something morally wrong when NRA wants the power to define our rights. There's something morally wrong when our politicians have higher commitments with an NRA than with the very people who voted for them. There's something really wrong when a country also don't have adults to fight for their kids. There's something actually also very beautiful when children and teenagers lead the way. As Jesus said, the kingdom of God belongs to them. So let the children's leadership not be an indictment of the adults' absent actions. The kids are giving us a wake-up call, and we got to hear it and act on it. In this struggle, my friends, I want us to remember that this fight that we have today on gun control is so connected with so many other fights. Gun violence must be connected with other issues of our times. And not long ago I was here with a group of people who were talking about how they are suffering without health care and suffering in the hands of private insurance companies. So today we fight for gun control. But we will not forget about the redlining project that have divided the rich and the poor in this country and placed us into us and them. The poverty of our own people and those kids who are struggling at school. Please go search for redlining if you don't know about this. Today we fight for gun control. But let us not forget that we are all responsible for the full education of our children. All of our children, whites, blacks, browns, yellow, natives, immigrants, non-documented, children of all faith, children of no faith. We are all responsible for them. They are our children. And these children need parents to have a good salary with an increased minimum salary and a good health care so they can afford a full life. In this fight, my friends, let's not forget that there are many voices in this fight. Activists from a broader choir of youth, from Columbine to Ferguson to Baltimore, who have harmonized their voices to plead for an end to gun violence in all its forms. As our brother Michael McBride reminds us, the ears of our nation have still not been trained to hear the prophetic voice of poor youth of color. The mothers and fathers of this ongoing legacy millennial youth-led movement include Florida's own Dream Defenders, the youths of the Million Hoodies movement, who built chapters throughout the country, mobilizing young people and advocating an end to youth violence. The protest by the youths of Ferguson represented years of pent-up frustration with state-sanctioned gun violence inflicted by local police forces. The struggle has many voices and colors, my friends. That's why this is a national fight for all of the country, and we start here in Pennsylvania with our kids. We start here. Like my daughter, Libby, who was so afraid to walk out, but she was empowered to do that. Like Sarah, who were empowered to go out, like our kids who walked out and helped us to gain the courage that we didn't have. So let's give a hand to them again. They are the ones, the reason why we are here. We join them and thousands of people to show them that they are not alone. They actually came before us. Thank you. They need our showing up. They need our support. And for the sake of our children and the memory of those who were killed, to build a new future for our nation. So now, we are going to finish our talk, Chris and I, by naming some of the names. And you know, in the Latinx community, we always say when we lose someone, we all say their names and we say presente. So we're going to say their names and we can all say present here in memory of those kids.
Scott Beagle, 35 years old.
Present.
Aaron Feiss, 37.
Present.
Christopher Hickson, 49.
Present.
Alyssa Aldahoff, 14.
Present.
Martin Duke Aguano, 14.
Present.
Nicholas Dworet, 17.
Present.
Jamie Gutenberg, 14.
Present.
Luke Hoyer, 15.
Present.
Clara Logram, 14.
Present.
Gina Montaldo, 14.
Present.
Guac Oliver, 17.
Present.
Elena Petty, 14.
Present.
Meadow Pollock, 18.
Present.
Helena Ramsey, 17.
Present.
Alex Schrachter, 14.
Present.
Carmen Schentrup, 16.
Present.
Peter Wang, 15.
Present. They are all here present with us.
They are present with us together saying,
do not stay put.
Walk,
fight,
keep going,
for our lives and deaths cannot be left in vain.
And we will not let them die in vain.
In the name of life and all the religious names that hold to life, we are called to shape our past, our present, and our future, until there is nothing wrong going on in our society. Amen.
Thank you for that. My name's Mayor John Fetterman, and I want to apologize. I'm losing my voice, and I'm going to keep my comments brief. But I'm the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania. And for those in this area, I describe Braddock as Steelton with probably more issues, you know. And that's true. So how does a York County boy, a guy that grew up and went to Central York High School, graduated in 1987, end up mayor of a small, struggling steel town in western Pennsylvania? And it's the same two reasons why we're here today: gun violence and youth activism. I came to Braddock in 2001 as a program director to start GED programming for young people. And that program was incredibly successful, and we helped a lot of young people get their lives back on track. But 3 or 4 years into it, 2 of my students were gunned down brutally, and I decided I had to make a change. I could help them get a GED, I could help them get a job, but I couldn't do anything to change the gun culture in my community. So I made the improbable choice of running for mayor. And if you look at me now, you probably have never been mistaken for a public official the way I look. But I have to tell you, the only reason why I had the faith to take that election on is because the young people that I was lucky enough to serve got active and behind me, and they campaigned with me and knocked on every door in town with me. And they were my validators. And I won that first election in 2005 by one single solitary vote. And since then, I've gone on to be elected to 3 additional terms, all by greater majorities, greater than 2/3. And people ask me, John, what are you most proud of, the things that you've been able to accomplish in Braddock during your time? And that's an easy answer. And that's because we went 5.5 years without the loss of life through violence in our community. That is not to say that gun violence has not touched my community, that it's not an ever-present threat. If you want to look what gun violence looks like in my community, all I have to do is raise up my sleeve. These are the dates when we've lost people through violence in my community. And I know for a single fact that one of the young people that voted for me is one of these dates. And it's something that I can never, ever take for granted. If you've made it through this lifetime, never seeing what an assault rifle round does to a human body, I hope you continue. I unfortunately can't say that because we've seen that visited upon our community. And if I have any takeaways from my own small life in public service, it's that every vote matters, and we can never, ever not keep pushing back against gun violence in our society. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Aiden Checkett. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. All right. I'm a senior at Carlisle High School, and just like Mayor Fetterman, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so bear with me. Before we begin, I want everyone to partake in a moment of silence for the victims, both the 17 at Parkland and for every other person who's been gunned down unjustly in the last decade or so. I want everyone who has a flower behind me to hold it up, please, during this moment. And I want everyone to sit there and think about what we've all been through as a society and what we can do to stop it. We can start that now. Great, thank you. Before I begin speaking, just a couple more points. As we were looking for Lucy, something struck me. We were without a child here today for about 5 minutes. That child was found, and we were all gratified. In Parkland, 17 children were never found alive ever again, and their parents and their community will deal with what we only dealt with for 5 minutes today. So I want everyone to think about what happened today and to understand that's why we're here. Secondly, I want everyone to think about what we can do. Because if there's a single person in front of me who is an American citizen and is 18 and is not registered to vote, it is absolutely imperative that you do that. Because that's the only way things are going to change. And please get involved in groups like Honor Through Action. There was a flyer passed around about a proposal for a bus as kind of a billboard for ending gun violence. Anything you can do in your free time would be greatly appreciated towards ending this cause, towards ending gun violence. All right. So a question that has been posed lately is, why is Parkland different? Why is this shooting sparking action in a way no other has? Why do teenagers care when they have seemingly ignored every other tragedy? There are two answers to this. First, we have always cared. Our minds, our souls have hurt every time a death toll flashes across the television. Every time another sensible, seemingly non-controversial bill is voted down in Congress. We have been taken by frustration and disappointment. We simply never knew how to speak out. This time, however, our peers started the movement. There has never been a high school shooting of this magnitude in my generation's political lifetimes. The students of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High
were not a group of strangers thrust together by common tragedy. They have known and loved one another for years. There was a sense of community that their fellow victims in movie theaters and concerts could never hope to match. The shooter attacked the wrong people. He attacked a family. We all see ourselves in the Parkland students, and they inspire us in a way we have never felt before. This past Wednesday, March 14th, I and 200 other students walked out of Carlisle High School for 45 minutes. Never in my life have I felt so connected to such a large group of people. There were people in this crowd to whom I had never spoken. There were people whose name I did not know. But on that day, a sense of unity transcended all of this. We hold a power here, a power nobody can take away from us. We stand here together, united, and ready to work. Some may look cynically at our gathering here today. They will claim that nothing will change. They are forgetting one important fact. We live in a democracy. Our voices matter, and our voices will be heard. We have one tool in our arsenal that billions of people all across the world only wish they had. A vote that means something. Speak out. Those of you who can vote, go to the polls. Reach out to your elected officials. We, after all, are their bosses. For those of you who cannot vote yet, your time is coming. I, myself, will be voting for the first time on May 15th, 2 days after I turn 18. We are the future, as cliche as it sounds, and we matter just as much as any other citizen. There is a wall of opposition against us. It is constructed for the misguided priorities of those who value campaign donations over human lives. It is reinforced by the apathy of those who cannot be bothered to take action even when their own lives are in danger. And it is set in place by the cynicism of those who mistakenly believe that change is not possible. We know better. We will break this wall and liberate America from this scourge of gun violence. Gun control is not a Democrat issue. Gun control is not a liberal issue. It shouldn't even be an ideological issue. What we are dealing with is 17 dead bodies in Florida. What we are dealing with is a human rights issue. What we, ladies and gentlemen, are dealing with is an atrocity. Now, it's important to qualify what we mean by gun control. These are two loaded words that mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Unfortunately, a given person's opinion on the meaning and virtue of the phrase gun control has become almost a partisan litmus test. Something that others believe illustrates who you are as a person. When we really delve into specific policy proposals, however, this picture changes. A whopping 97% of Americans support universal background checks. 83% of Americans support a mandatory waiting period for anyone wishing to purchase a firearm. 67% of Americans support a comprehensive ban on assault weapons. This is not about preventing hunting, target shooting, or self-defense. This is about making sure that we take seriously the sale of weapons designed to destroy. Now, from 1994 to 2004, there was a comprehensive federal ban on assault weapons. These 10 years saw a 43% decrease in mass shooting deaths from the decade before. The decade after the ban expired saw a 239% increase in mass shooting deaths. Now, there's one policy solution that's ambitious but also simple, and it would be remarkably effective. A ban on any gun that can fire more than 6 bullets without reloading, or any magazine or other alteration that would give it the ability to do so. Obviously, this would be transformative, but it still respects the use and purpose of firearms in our country, which I respect. Shooting a deer does not require a magazine of 30 rounds. Nobody ever faced more than a minor inconvenience reloading while shooting at a piece of paper. And there is nothing an AR-15 can do in a home invasion that a shotgun cannot do more effectively. So, what reasonable legal purpose can a rifle with a magazine of 30 rounds accomplish that a simpler gun cannot? Nothing. The only difference is that a larger magazine makes it significantly easier to murder a large group of human beings. If banning murder weapons is an abridgment of rights, should rocket launchers be legal? Should machine guns be legal? How should chemical weapons be legal? No! This doesn't even just apply to the Second Amendment. Should it be legal to cry fire in a crowded movie theater? No! Should it be legal for companies to lie about their products on television? No! This is not about attacking anyone's rights. I will fight to the end to protect your right to say what you believe in. I will fight for your right to be a free person in a free country. I must also, however, fight for the lives of innocent victims in a system which refuses to do what needs to be done to prevent their murders. There is no realistic solution that does not include gun control. The only thing every single shooting has in common is a gun. And as long as there is unfettered access to those guns specifically designed to take multiple human lives, the shootings will not stop. I will think of the victims. I will pray for the victims. But above all, I will honor the victims by doing anything and everything I can do to make sure something like what happened in Parkland never happens again. Today, on March 24th, hundreds upon hundreds of us are gathered here in Harrisburg. There are hundreds of thousands in Washington, D.C. All across the country, American citizens are gathered to stand up for our rights and do what needs to be done. Our voices will be heard. We care too much to be silenced. We care too much to stay put. We know that we are on the right side of history, and we have the full might of justice behind us. Because we believe that enough is enough, we will join together today, next week, the week after, and every day until sensible gun control is enacted nationwide. We will do all we can do to make sure that we never see another Parkland. Never again! 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 Thank you.
Finish up the speaker section with a song. Sing along, please, if you want, and then we will get to the march section of it. Also, just so you guys do know, we do have voter registration tables set up, so if anybody needs registered, please go see them. And when we are marching, it will be led by our student speakers, and we're gonna go down here, we're going to turn left, we're going to go down 3rd Street, and then we're going to turn right on Pine Street, and then we're going to come back up State Street, and we're going to finish here where we started. But, all right.
Can everybody come in a little bit closer, please? As close as we can get to one another. All right, Teresa is here. Need a student, please, to hold up this fist.
You want to move up there? You're photographing this? You want to get way up?
I think my phone's about to die, actually.
So, what?
So we're going to do a little
what
song
newspaper are you
called
from?
We Shall Not Be Moved.
I have a show on the internet.
We'll sing together.
Real
I'll sing a few
progressive.
verses, but this song is a wonderful song for people to invent new verses as we go through. So I'm hoping everybody knows the song. It comes from the abolition movement. The labor movement has used it, civil rights movement, women's movement, anti-war movements, and now the anti-killing kids in school movement. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the there, in case you don't know them, it said just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Here we go. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Standing strong together. Here we go. Standing strong together, we shall not be moved. Standing strong together, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Power to the people. Power to the people, we shall not be moved. Power to the people, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. A little bit louder. Okay, need somebody to invent a verse.
Stop gun violence.
What do you have?
Stop gun violence.
Okay, stop all gun violence. Stop all gun violence, we shall not be moved. Stop all gun violence, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Who has one? No more killing. No more killing. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. we've had enough.
We have had enough, yeah, we shall not be moved. We have had enough, yeah, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
Standing up with Parkland.
Standing up with Parkland, we shall not be moved. Standing up with Parkland, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
Get out the vote!
Let's sing loud enough so they hear us in D.C.
Get out and vote! Get out the vote!
Get out the vote now.
Get out the vote now, we shall not be moved.
A little bit louder.
Get out the vote now, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
Last opportunity.
No more NRA!
For the sake of our kids. Here we go. For the sake
of our kids, now we shall not be moved. For the sake of our kids, now we shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
We shall not be moved.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
One more time. Keep it clapping.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the water.
Slow it down.
We shall not be moved.
All right, I'm gonna do something dangerous. Turn the mic off.
Can anyone hear me through this? Close enough. All right, I'm gonna ask the people in this direction to sort of make a hole so all the students can follow me down towards the front and everyone else follow behind us. The students are leading the way.
That's what I was, yeah. I'm not skipping. You skip. So, are you trying to start? I try to get in my car now and go home. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually not nearly as cold as I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's cold enough for me.
Yeah, I'm just gonna film the start of the march. I filmed all the speakers, so I think I'll just film the start. But
Got your Bernies, yeah, always.
I like the idea of all these young people register in your vote.
Oh yeah, that's great for us.
Oh yeah.
Now, if they actually show up to vote, that's
Right, and
the
if
next,
we actually get good candidates.
yeah, that they care about.
I know.
That was one of my buddies from the Bernie campaign office who has come to many of the events I've organized. Definitely a really good turnout. Getting kind of nostalgic. I've organized so many events on these steps. Very convenient to have our state's capital right by us. They know me well. I drop off petitions and all kinds of fun stuff and kind of harass their offices. Hey, how are you? I'm streaming for RP.
Which way am I going?
No, you're fine. Is the gang here? Benny and your boo and... Oh, okay.
They were here, but they're like... Benny's cold, he has to pee. So, I'm just headed out. It's good to see you.
You too.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Brought my kid along.
Hi. These kids have great signs, and it's so inspiring to... I wish I learned about activism when I was this young.
Well, it's because kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. That's how it was when we were growing up.
You got it.
You were in Bethlehem too. So.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it was. But nice to see you. We're going to get marching.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna catch too, yeah. Sorry guys, I'm running into some activist friends. So this is a really good turnout. It's interesting because all the times that I organized, I actually never got a permit because I don't believe in it. So it's interesting to see all these people with a permit because, you know, we've done this many times in the street, and thankfully many of the cops have been pretty good. I did a immigrants march where over 1,000 people showed up. And it was just myself and one other person who organized, and we weren't expecting that. I actually thought there would be some counter protesters here today. Yet I haven't seen any, so that's good. But I kind of wanted to ask them some questions. I'm intrigued.
Good morning, and get you good food and sing some songs. Bring the kids. Yeah, he's playing.
Oh, yeah, she got some. All right,
Third in the bird is always.
Big Devin, now. Try to come up there.
Yeah, okay. Take care.
How are
Be
you?
safe.
Hi! I didn't know you were speaking.
Good to see you.
You too.
Good to see you.
Let me get a picture of you guys with your son?
Worked out.
Anybody?
Okay.
There you go.
10:30. Okay.
Okay. Y'all sound more cleaner than mine.
Yeah.
There you go. Now there.
Until
Ready?
somebody will email me with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Can you just say your name and what brought you out?
I'm Julian Davenport. I'm an urban poet. I go by Jules. I'm from Harrisburg. I wrote the poem Tragedy to help raise funds for the Harrisburg Heat event, the soccer team for our city. And from there, I heard about the rally and got called here, so I wanted to perform it and let everybody, bring some awareness to the situation with my art. My book series is In My Eyes, urban poetry series, and a lot of my poems have to do with awareness and gun violence.
Awesome. So how do you feel about the people who took to the streets in San Fran about the young gentleman a couple days ago who was murdered?
What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, about what got shot by the police?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can only imagine how I feel about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
It's
do you
a horror.
feel like it seems like everybody's very focused on the schools, which is understandable,
Yeah.
but do you feel like we need to do more about people of color?
Well, here goes my stance on that. We always had this problem on the city streets, gun violence. Even as young as 5 or 6 years old, outside the door you can hear the gunshots at nighttime. So to me, gun violence, it's always been there. But the fact that people are listening, I guess because it's the students or whatever, I feel like even though it's always been there, you always got to speak up for it. Now you got like a large group of young people that are speaking up for not just the school shootings, but for everybody that's getting affected by the gun violence.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's being affected by the gun violence. And, it's just going to vibrate out, and either we're going to change it or we're not. We're going to all be dead. You got to make a choice.
So what happens after today with you? Are you going to be doing more speaking engagements?
I've been doing this since 2011. This is nothing new. You know what I mean?
That's
so
awesome.
I'm going to continue to do it as long as there's breath in my body.
Absolutely.
You could check me out on Instagram at IME Urban Poetry. You can check me out on Google, Julian Davenport. I got a story from the Patriot News. It was front page back when I first got started. I just had a review in the Berg magazine for February issue. I got some of my poetry in there, and if you read any of my other poems, you'll see what type of writing I'm into.
Awesome.
And what type of causes I stand for.
Awesome. I'm with Real Progressives. We have about 121,000 followers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're getting your name out.
Okay. Thanks, guys. What's up? Jules, In My Eyes, urban poetry, representing tragedy. Let me see that sign, good brother. This is my boy right here. He knew me since we was younger. He stands with the cause, too.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Yep. You got card?
No, I don't have it on me. Thank you.
Where can I find?
If you go to Facebook, Real Progressives.
Huh? I think that coffee was mine, but I'm gonna throw it out. Hold on. Let me look you up real quick. Are you on Instagram or just Facebook?
Just Facebook and YouTube.
Real Progressive. I'll just take a picture of that. Yeah. I'll look it up later because they're down there marching right now. What do you think about all of this? Actually, I'm going to interview you.
I think it's amazing. I've organized many events on these steps, so I love the idea of getting people together.
Yeah.
I just think it's important to also
bring awareness to everything. Well, that's pretty much what I felt like. That's part of the reason I'm out here, not just for the school shootings, but for gun violence. Period.
Exactly.
Our babies are dying.
You
been
got
dying. I just talked to a lady that lost her son from the police shooting. You know what I mean? So they're standing out here too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's important for sure.
Me, I just think it's always important to stand up for something.
Absolutely.
So, my name is Joel Welch. I do focus radio.
Hi, baby. As you can see, they're walking back to our Capitol steps. Here's our Harrisburg, PA Capitol. And there's a guy playing surfing music. That was interesting. Okay guys, I think it's a wrap, but thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to everyone else who has joined into marches all over the states. It's a big cause, and we need to remember it doesn't just affect schools. There are a lot of Black and brown people who deal with this all the time. We can't forget about that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for your activism. As always, I have candidate interviews Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.